Yo, what is happening, guys? Nathan back once again with another episode of the Unplugged Freedom Podcast. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about something very important that is happening very, very fast in today's world. It's almost worrisome. It's not quite worrisome, but it's coming. It's coming hot and heavy, that's for sure. So, what is it? We're going to be talking about anti-protected people. Now, the reason that I'm calling them anti-protected people and not using the actual term is because places like Facebook, Google, YouTube, Instagram, all these places, these big tech corporations, they will recognize the actual term, the actual name, and then they will flag this podcast, and then they'll most likely delete it and then ban me. And so that is how crazy of a world that we live in, that you can't even create a podcast talking about something without having to modify your actual words. You have to be cautious of what you say, or else you're going to be flagged and then deleted. Like, that alone should just scare people. That right there. And then on top of that, you have things like the White House of the United States, the president, so the White House, they are already in talks with big tech corporations like Facebook and making sure that certain topics and certain subjects are actually being banned. But not only that. Now, let's say if you or I were having a conversation through text message. That's a conversation between you or I. It's just like if you or I were at a coffee shop sitting down together having a conversation, but instead of that, well, let's say you're in your home and I'm in my home and we're having a conversation through text message. The White House wants to be able to censor the text messages that you send through your device. That is how wild this whole entire world that we are living in is getting. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine having a conversation through the phone and the company saying, we don't like what you're talking about, so we're gonna censor your conversation? It's like, well, this is our conversation. Like, we can talk about how the world is the shape of a triangle if we'd like. It doesn't matter. So the question is, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this, that we have to almost sneak around and make up certain words like anti-protected people? So we're going to be talking about protected people and anti-protected people. Okay, so just kind of use your mind, your imagination, and I'm sure you can easily tell what I'm actually talking about. Who knows, maybe even big tech corporations' technology is so good that they've already clued in to what I'm actually talking about right now. I wouldn't be surprised at that either, because the technology that is in today's world is absolutely insane. So, big tech corporations coming in, censoring your I conversation. Whether it's on the phone, whether it's through text messages, they want to censor it. You're not allowed to have an opinion, and you're not allowed to ask questions. You're just supposed to turn on the TV, listen to the news, and follow whatever they say on the news. Why that's dangerous is because they can say whatever they want, and you're not supposed to question it. And that's the crazy thing. You know, a lot of people think that I'm anti-science. And I'll even, the conversation comes up of being protected or unprotected or anti-protected. And I will mention that I am just an informed individual. For those of you who think that there is such a thing called protected person and an anti-protected person, there's no such thing as an anti-protected person. There is only an informed individual. That's all they are. So let's say, for example, that you were a meat eater. Okay? You ate meat, you ate beef, you ate lamb, you ate chicken, you ate all the meats, eggs, all of it. But then all of a sudden, a vegan came along and said, do you know how that meat is actually processed? Do you know where that meat came from? Do you know how they get the eggs from that hen? Do you know how they actually get the milk from that cow? So you, being ignorant, you have no idea, you have no clue, you say, well, no, I don't. I just go to the store and I pick up my carton of milk. I just grab my carton of eggs. I grab my steaks for dinner. No, I don't know how it's actually processed, or I don't know how it gets from the farm to my dinner plate or the grocery store. So the vegan then educates you, and then he shows you the whole process as to what happens just to get eggs, what happens to get cow's milk, what happens to get a bacon from pigs. Now, you have a lot more information than you did prior to that. Now, a few things may happen. Let's just say, okay, for simple stakes, that you, since you now have this information, you say, wow, I never knew that. I don't think I'm gonna ever eat meat again. And I'm not, this isn't like, don't let me lose you on vegan or unvegan or meat. Like that's not what we're talking about. This is just an example. Okay. There's so many times I lose people. I'm trying to like share an example, and then people are like, oh, well, I'm not a vegan. And and they just start going off on something. They lose what I'm trying to like make a point out of it. So I don't blame them, because so many people are just so surface level, and they don't have the capacity in order to take their thinking down to a much deeper level. So let's say, for simplicity's sakes, you are now an informed individual, because before you didn't know how the eggs or the beef or the cows or the milk, you had no idea, but now you do. And because of that, you say, wow, I don't think I could consciously, out of good conscience, eat meat anymore. Every time I look at those eggs, I see those poor little hens just getting thrown into the meat grinder. Every time I see that slab of beef, that steak, I see this poor cow with fear in their eyes and, in a dark place being electrocuted. And, that poor cow getting a hammer through its head. And so you're now an informed individual. You're not anti-meat necessarily. You're just an informed individual who is making better informed decisions. That's all you are. So now you also don't have to take one side or the other. You could be kind of in the middle. You could kind of say, well, you know what? I see the information, but at the same time, I'll try to make better decisions. So I'll go to a butcher shop and not one of these mass factory places where they abuse the heck out of these animals. I'll go to one of these other places. So you're trying to make better decisions. Why? Because you're an informed individual. That is why. So there's no such thing as an anti-protected person. There is only an informed individual. Now, let's say that you had a couple of friends, and your friends came to you and they said, man, do you mind if we invite John over this weekend? John is amazing. John is he's so cool. He's so funny. Oh man, you're going to love John. And you're thinking, this John guy sounds pretty cool. And they seem to like him. They seem to be all about him. Sure, invite John to the party. And they're all stoked. They're like, yeah, we'll get John here. You'll love him. You trust me. And then all of a sudden you talk to some other friends. You're like, yeah. So apparently, Tom and Sally are going to invite some John guy. But they seem to be really excited about him. And then let's say your other friends, they say, oh, John, I hate John. John is just terrible. He's just the worst guy. You're like, what? Like, why? I'm like, oh, and then they start giving you all these reasons, and you're like, well, it's good information to know. I haven't met John, so I'm going to wait until I meet John. So then all of a sudden you happen to meet John at the party. Tom and Sally, they bring John, and hey, this is John. He's the best guy ever. And you're like, yeah, this is so cool. You meet John, and you're asking John a few questions here and there, just kind of like the basic, usual kind of stuff. But then all of a sudden, as you try to get to know him a little bit more, you start to recognize a few things. You ask him a question, and then he totally diverts the question. And you're like, okay, well, whatever. You try to ask him the same question, maybe in a different way. Then all of a sudden, you notice that he diverts it again. You're like, okay, well, that's interesting. And then you go for it a third time, and he diverts it once again. And you're kind of thinking, that's odd. Why does he not want to answer my question? I've asked him 3 different times. But then you see that Tom and Sally, they love John. They're all about John. And then you got, say, Kevin and Samantha, they hate John. Okay? They're anti-John. They can't stand John. But for you, you're kind of in the middle. You're not for John, but you're also not anti-John. You've just recognized some things that you don't have enough answers for yourself, that you can be on one side or the other. And that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to be for John or anti-John. You're just kind of in the middle. You're still getting to know John. And that's totally okay. So, that is the world that we live in right now. That a lot of times people would assume, let's say Tom and Sally, they're like, what are you, anti-John? Isn't John great? John's the funniest. And you're like, I don't know. I don't really know John very well. Like, I just, might take me a little bit more time to get to know him a little bit more, as like you guys. I'm like, well, you better like John, because John's hilarious. He's funny. What are you, anti-John, like Kevin and Samantha over there? They're just the worst people ever. They don't like John. And they can't even tell you why. That's my point. That is this world that we live in. Now, why it's important and why it's a scary time to be, well, I shouldn't say a scary time, but it's almost it's moving in that direction, okay, is because when I turn on the radio and I will listen to the news, I always say, you can listen to the news, okay, but it's not okay to consume the news. Do not consume the news. Most people out there, they consume the news. And what I mean by that is they let that information get into their brain, and then they start repeating whatever the media is telling them. And the next thing you know, their thoughts, their ideas, their beliefs are not even their own. They've just been given to them. So that's what happens when you consume media, especially media that is not good. If you consume good media, like positive, motivational, uplifting kind of stuff, that's good. Just like if you were to consume good, healthy food, you also want to consume good, healthy, hearty information into your mind. Your mind is a computer. We are a biological computer. What you put into it, you're going to get out. If you pull into the McDonald's drive-thru every single day, 3 times a day, you're putting that into your body. What do you think is going to output? It's the exact same thing when you start putting stuff into your mind. You turn on CNN, it is horrendous. And what blows me away is that people will turn on CNN and just consume that information. But also notice people. If you know that they consume some garbage like CNN, take a note of them and their ideas and their thoughts and their beliefs of who they are. and their view on the world, all these different kinds of things. And you'll see a direct correlation. It's like, oh, I see the information that you're consuming, and I also see who you are. You see somebody who is consuming TV shows like Family Guy, Rick and Morty, The Simpsons, things like that, and then they're turning on Jimmy Kimmel and they're turning on the news. Well, you can see a direct reflection of that, just the very same as if you see somebody who's eating good, high-quality meats, good, clean vegetables, organic fruits and vegetables. They're getting a lot of good rest. Well, you can see that directly reflected, just the very same as if you see somebody consuming bags of chips and pop and fast food. Well, you just look at them and you can see it. Like, I can see why you're angry. I can see why you're irritated. I can see why you're... I can see, okay? So it's a direct correlation. So it's okay to look at the news and kind of watch the news. I watch it just to kind of keep up with what's the direction that they're trying to push people in. Now, the direction that they're trying to push people in is this hatred towards anti-protected people. And they use that term all the time. Oh, the anti-protected. It's like imagine if they were to say what it actually is, which is just an informed individual. There's a lot of informed individuals who are not getting the protection because they have been informed. It's a much different message than if you call them an anti-protected person. So there's this, what else can we say? There's a new, I'm trying to say this in such a way so that certain keywords aren't flagged and then this podcast is going to be deleted. So if you turn on the news, you'll hear about a so-called new type of thing. We'll just call it a thing, okay? It's a new type. Okay, let's call it the beta type. Okay, it's the new beta type, and it's going to cause in Canada they're talking about how it's going to cause the fourth. What do I want to call it? See, I'm trying to say certain words so that I don't get this freaking podcast flagged. So this new type of thing is going to cause a fourth what would you call that? A fourth impact, let's call it an impact. Okay, fourth impact. We've already had 3 impacts. Okay, so they're warning that Canada is going to get a 4th impact from this new type of thing. Okay, this beta type. So hopefully you're following along. I know it's weird because but that's the crazy world that we live in, that we have to create a new language just in order for us to talk like that. How wild is that? So there's this new beta type thing, and in Canada they're talking about how it's going to cause a 4th impact. And if this 4th impact happens, then they're saying that it's going to be different than all 3 of the other impacts that have already happened. That is actually really interesting, because I've read that in the news. I've heard it on the news. And when they say that it's going to be a new type of impact, it's going to be different than the previous 3 impacts, in a way that's almost worrisome, because the media, the reason I listen to the media and the news is because they'll tell you exactly the direction that we're going to go. They're already priming people to let them know. And so people are listening to this and consuming it Remember, I'm not consuming it. I'm just listening to it to try and get some information from it. So people are consuming this information, and then they're going out to their work and they're repeating it. They're at the water cooler and they're saying, "Oh, have you heard about this new beta type? It's coming because of all these anti-protected people, and it's going to cause a fourth impact. And this fourth impact, it's going to be worse than the past three. And it's all because of those damn anti-protected people. Ooh, those anti-protectors. I hate them so much. Why can't they just suck it up? They're so selfish." It's literally the conversations that happen at the frickin' water cooler. I just want to like punch these people in the throat. But that's what happens. That is what the media is designed for. They tell the people what to think, what to believe, how to feel, and then they go out and then they just continue that conversation, and then they just fuel each other. So then there's this hatred towards informed individuals, these so-called anti-protected people. So they're really pushing for this anti-protected campaign, really is what you could call it. This slandering of them. The articles, they'll use articles like New York Times. They'll use who also is it? The Guardian. All the big name places, they'll use them because that's how they use them. They'll use celebrities. They'll use actors. They'll use comedians. They'll use musicians. So think of it like this. This is how crazy this whole world is. Okay, there's like a few people at the very, very top. There's people who control the food industry. There's people who control the media industry. There's people who control the entertainment industry. There's people who control the pharmaceutical industry. What else is there? The oil industry. So there's only a few industries that are actually controlled. Now, if you think about the media and the entertainment industry that is controlled, like, so many people think that when they turn on the TV that they have all these choices. They have all these different channels that they can actually go through. But the reality is that if you actually take a deeper look into those channels and those networks, they all funnel pretty much into the same people. There's only like 6 different actual corporations that own all of it. Netflix, Disney Plus, Crave, CBC, NBC, like you name it, all those different things, they all funnel into a select few who are in control, which then goes all the way to the top, who is totally in control. So if they want to have you thinking about a so-called beta, a different beta type that is coming, guess what? They just put it into the top, and then down this, almost like a pyramid, you could say, goes the media, and it goes through all the outlets. So then all of a sudden, you have everybody walking around talking about the new beta type thing that is coming. And they're talking about the fourth impact that it's going to cause. What if they were to put something like cancer? Cancer, you're actually in Canada, you're 8 times more likely to die from cancer than you are of this so-called thing. Okay? 8 times. But do you think people are afraid of dying from cancer? No. Nobody gives a shit about cancer. But why is that? Why are they afraid of something that they are 8 times chance of not getting than they do of cancer? Heart disease. You have a 10 times more greater chance of dying from heart disease than you do from this so-called thing. 10 times. So between cancer and heart disease, you're 18 times more likely to die from this than you are this so-called thing. Do you think people care? No. Why is that? It's because all these people are running around with not their own thoughts, not their own ideas, and not their own beliefs. That's why. They turn on the news, they consume it. The news tells them exactly what to think, what to believe, what to fear. If the news came out and started talking about how you're 18 times more likely to die from heart disease and cancer, there'd be a lot of people who would not be pulling into McDonald's as much, not be pulling into fast food. And that's what blows me away, is that you can see these people who are extremely unhealthy. Go to the grocery store. Pick any grocery store. Usually like a Walmart, you'll really see this. Go to like a Walmart, go to a superstore if you're in Canada. Go to like your normal big ones, right? Especially Walmart. And you'll see someone. And you'll see that they'll have a huge mound of just garbage, trash ass food, and yet they're wearing their thing over their face because they're scared of something that is most likely not going to kill them. But what is most likely going to kill them is cancer, heart disease, diabetes. What else is there? You're looking at them and you're like, look, you got a lot bigger things to worry about than this so-called thing. And that piece of whatever you're wearing on your face, trust me, like, you got to take care of what's in your shopping cart first. I would much rather be surrounded by a whole entire group of unprotected people who are healthy than to be surrounded by a whole group of unhealthy people who are so-called protected. And what's funny is that even if you are protected, you're not. And that's not me saying it, that's the scientists saying it themselves, that's the media saying it themselves. And this is what blows me away, is that people are so stupid. This is really how dumb people are. The same people who are giving them the so-called protection are telling them, okay, we're going to give you this protection, but it doesn't actually protect you. Because you can still get the thing, you can still pass on the thing, okay, so just know that. And they're like, well, okay. And then they still get the protection. And it's like, well, and then they have hatred towards someone like me who is so-called unprotected, anti-protected. And it's like, well, how can you be mad at me? Okay, 1, I take care of myself. 2, I eat probably 1,000 times healthier than you. Okay? Which makes me far less likely to catch anything, to get sick, to die. Whereas you're just riddled with germs and disgusting things. Like, your body inside and out is just infestation of just nastiness. Who knows, like, on top of the thing, you probably have 10 other things that are there. So it's just like, how can you look at me like I'm the piece of shit, when in reality it's you who's going around passing germs all over to everybody because of you and your unhealthy daily habits. That's how idiotic these people are. That they, rather than take responsibility, they'd rather blame and say, oh, all these damn anti-protected people, they're killing everybody, they're so selfish. No, they're just informed. You are uninformed. You're also highly uninformed about your food choices, and your oh yeah, So anyways, they're really pushing against it. So they basically are putting out a campaign, and this campaign is basically slandering anti-protected people. That's pretty much what they're doing. They're just putting out a campaign. You know, like how a campaign, like a mayor, if they wanted to run for mayor, or somebody wanted to run for president, they would put on a campaign, right? They have billboards, they have TV ads, they have all different kinds of things. That's essentially what they're doing right now. Is they're putting out an anti-protected campaign to slander all the anti-protected people. All the articles, they're using all the tools that they have, the news articles, New York Times, The Guardian, all these places, they're using all their tools. They're writing articles saying, oh, anti-protected people are the ones who are dying, anti-protected people are the ones who are spreading this thing. Well, no, actually, protected people are spreading it, if not just as much as anti-protected people. Probably more so, because most people who are getting the so-called protection are quite unhealthy themselves, so which makes them more susceptible to actually catching something. I can't remember the last time I was sick. Well, actually, I think it was last year sometime. I think it was from a tick. Almost died. Thought it was going to be the end of me. And then the time before that was when I was living in Asia, which was a few years before, and I thought I was going to die then. And die alone in Asia. I was like, this is it. This is how I go. Yeah, but if what I had would have hit any other like average person, it would have like killed them. But since it hit me, okay, you're gonna have to try a lot harder than that to try and take me out. I'm sorry, but I take care of myself. Okay, you have to be a pretty nasty ass thing in order to come along and actually affect me. I've actually probably been one of the healthiest, throughout this whole entire year. Everyone's all scared and, sucking on their covering. It's just ridiculous. So you turn on the news and there's just a mass amount of hatred towards anti-protected people. But like I said, there's no such thing as an anti-protected person. It's just an informed individual. You're not anti-John, but you're also not for John. You just know some things about John that if Tom and Sally knew about it, or maybe they do and they just like turn a blind eye to it, and you're like, yeah, but John did this. How can you still like him if he did this? Like, he lied. He committed fraud, and you still like John? Like, I'm sorry, but I can't like John because he committed fraud. He committed lies. And they're like, no, you're crazy. What are you talking about? John's the best. And you're like, no. I just looked into John, found some things out about him that are factual, that are 100% true. And yeah, so I'm not a fan of John. I'm sorry. And then your friends Tom and Sally, they think that you're absolutely crazy. And then they form a big group hating you. They're like, oh, he's anti-John. He just says some lies saying that John did this or John did that. Total BS. It's like, it's not BS, because here's the actual factual evidence and the factual proof. That's just how idiotic this world is. That's just how stupid these people are. And so right now there's a huge campaign going on to slander anti-protected people. And why that's a little worrisome, because it's coming in hot and heavy. Okay, it's coming in fast. And the reason it's a little worrisome is because they're going to be throwing down mandates. Maybe I shouldn't even say mandates. That could flag this podcast. But they're going to be throwing those down, and then they're going to say, okay, in order for you to travel, you need to be protected, which they're already doing. In order for you to work here, you need to be protected, which they're already doing. And then in order for you to who knows, be a part of society. That's what's next. Is that they'll come out and they'll say, in order for you to be a part of society, you have to be protected. And you're like, no, I don't. Because I'm not taking an experimental pharmaceutical drug. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to take it. And you can't force me to take it. I already talked about in the last podcast, you can't buy me. I'm nobody's slave. I'm nobody's piece of property. You don't own me. And so you can threaten me with my job, you can threaten me with this or whatever. You can't take anything away from me. You know that one part in The Dark Knight with the Joker? Batman's got him in the interrogation room, and Batman's threatening him and just slamming him down and punching him and throwing him up against the wall. And all the Joker's doing is just laughing. And he's laughing, and he says to him, he says, you have nothing. You have nothing. Because Batman usually will threaten people like that. He will beat them up, he'll drop them off buildings, he'll hurt them. He'll threaten them with certain things. He'll never kill them, it's not what Batman does, but that's what the Joker wants him to do. Is he wants Batman to go that far. But he's laughing because Batman's trying to threaten him, but the Joker's just laughing and saying, you have nothing to threaten me with. And he just takes it. He doesn't care if he's getting slammed and he's in pain or whatever. He's bleeding. He just laughs because he's like, you can't do anything to me. There's only one way that you'll be able to get something out of me, and that is by breaking your one rule. And so, in a way, that's kind of like where I'm at. You can't threaten me with anything. You can take everything away from me. But it doesn't matter. I don't care if you took the shoes off my feet. You took the shirt off my back. It doesn't matter. I'm still going to survive. You can't threaten me with anything. I'm nobody's slave. I'm nobody's piece of property. But a lot of people, they will be threatened with a lot of things. Their income, their house, their all sorts of things. Traveling, whatever. And we already talked about this. What's your price to sell your soul? I don't have a price. You can't buy me. So it's a very interesting time to be alive right now because it's coming in hot, it's coming in fast, it's coming in heavy. They're coming after these people. They're coming after people like us. But the thing is, stand your ground. Stand for what you believe in. Stand for what is right. There's a lot of people who are pretending like they're standing up, but when push comes to shove, they're going to give in. Don't be that person. Look at France. Look at Denmark. Look at Germany. Look at Australia. We're going to talk about the Hunger Games in one of these future episodes. I recommend, if you haven't read, not the movie. Okay, the movie's great, but at least listen to the audiobook. The audiobook's really good as well. But read the books or listen to the audiobooks. Because the reason I want to talk about them in the future, in a future podcast episode, is because we are living in the Hunger Games. Literally. What happens in that whole book series is happening right now. It's incredible. People don't know or realize that there are uprisings that are happening in the different countries. So the different districts that are in the Hunger Games, those are the different countries. And people don't realize that there's things happening in those districts. Just like in the Hunger Games, they didn't know that there were uprisings happening in the different districts. They found out through other people talking. And they said, wow, there's things happening around the world that we don't even know. There's a part in the book, it's amazing, because even Katniss, she meets these two people who are running away from their district, and they're coming through, and they're saying, hey, we're going to District 13. And Katniss is from District 12. And she says, District 13 has been destroyed a long time ago. Why would you want to go there? And they say, it hasn't been. There's actually a whole bunch of people who live there. She says, no, I've seen it on the news. I've seen it on TV. Like, they show it all the time. There's nothing there but just rubble and rock. And they say, no. What you're actually seeing on the media is fake. And even Katniss herself was, even though she was against the people in charge, I can't remember what they're called, even though she was against them, she didn't even think that the media was manipulated. So she wasn't believing these people. And they say, look, watch it. They use the same footage over and over again because you will always see the same Mockingjay come in all the time. So Katniss is kind of like, well, whatever, you guys are crazy. She doesn't want to go with them. They go through. Then all of a sudden, later on, the news comes on talking about District 13. And she's watching it. And she's still hesitant or skeptical about what these people said. But then all of a sudden, that exact same bird that they had described happened right in front of her. And then she thought, whoa, that's exactly what they said. But then she tries to say, well, maybe it's because it's easier to use that footage, make the video, rather than having to go all the way to District 13 just to make the video. They could make it in studio. Yes, absolutely. But then all of a sudden, more comes out where they're talking about, hey, we're live in District 13. And then guess what happens? It's the same footage. She sees it. Her whole world was just flipped upside down. Because she was already against the Capitol. But she didn't think it went as this far that they were manipulating the news. And then all of a sudden she heard through other people while they were getting their hair done or whatever it was, that there were, there were supplies that were not happening. Seafood was not coming through. The grain wasn't coming through. And she's like, that's odd. Why is that? But then she realized and found out that it's because there's uprisings that are happening. I'm going to go through that book, that audiobook series once again, and I'm going to be writing down notes, and we're going to talk all about that, because it blew me away when I literally would have to stop. I'd turn it off and I'm like, whoa, this is fucking wild. Now, here's the kicker. Do you know why I actually started that audiobook? It was because at the beginning of this year, I think it was for the football, the Super Bowl. Pretty sure it was the Super Bowl. Lady Gaga comes out in a dress that is almost identical to the one that is in the Hunger Games. It was a dove, but in the Hunger Games, I'm pretty sure it's a mockingjay. So it was like, holy smokes. What are they saying right now? So that's what got me into the Hunger Games the first time. That was earlier this year. And then I just kept listening to it. Just day or night, every moment I got, I was just listening to it. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. So the next time I go through it, I'm going to be writing things down so that we can talk all about it, because you think you're going to remember it, but then you don't. So that's what I want to do. Absolutely insane. If you haven't read the book, maybe you have read it and you haven't read it in a long time, get a copy of it, go through the series, really take a look at what's happening in our world today and see just how crazy it is in reflection. Now, another series that I want to actually take a look at is the Divergent series. I don't have the audiobook yet, but I want to get that one. And the reason that one interests me is because in the movie, you have everybody takes an injection. Everybody takes a jab. And then there's divergents who, when they take it, it doesn't affect them. But everybody else it affects, and everybody else turns into like just a robot. And then they use them and control them. But then all of a sudden divergents are running around. They're like, hey, well, what are you guys doing? Like, why are you all walking in this direction? But then those who are in control, they see them just walking around, and they know that they're a divergent, so they kill them. So it's really interesting, really fascinating. So that's the next series that I do want to get into, and because, like I said, the Hunger Games, go through that. It is absolutely wild. When you are reading that and you're looking at today's world, and you know that Hong Kong, Australia, France, Germany, all these places are uprising, but you don't hear about it on the media. And then you realize that the media is manipulated and controlled. Well, it's crazy. So anyways, this has been long enough. Hope you guys enjoy this. Okay, lot to talk about, lot to share. Let me know what you think. You can always join my email list at unpluggedfreedom.com. Join me on Telegram, unpluggedfreedom.com. YouTube, unpluggedfreedom. BitChute, Rumble. I try to get out there as much, but we shall be in touch some way, somehow, as long as I don't get censored and deplatformed like they are doing to everybody else who has a voice and wants to think critically. All right, so thanks for listening. Hope you guys have a good one, and make sure that you're informed. Be an informed individual. Don't be a blind sheep.